Now, American officials say valuable intelligence has been gathered from the compound in Syria where the IS leader blew himself up. They've hinted that possible plans for operations around the world were found. The Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi's death was a significant milestone in the coalition's work to defeat IS, but not the end of the threat. France's President Macron called it a hard blow against the group, but said that the fight continued. Well, the former Defence Minister Tobias Ellwood also exercised caution.
Given what he did in creating this caliphate and the damage that he's done to the Middle East and wider beyond, his removal will be welcomed. But before we celebrate too much, we should recognise that he was actually a very low-profile leader here. He did not have the cult personality or wasn't the inspirational leader like Osama bin Laden. IS operates on a cell structure. Therefore, I don't see any change in the future.
Well, listening in is journalist and Middle East commentator Nabila Ramdani. Good morning, Nabila.
Good morning, Richard.
Just how significant is this?
Well, the key fact in all this is clearly that one of the most feared and reviled terrorist leaders in recent history is now dead. And this hugely dramatic information alone is a massive victory in the so-called war on terror, which the West has been fighting continually since the 9/11 attacks on the US in 2001. And when it comes to verifying these kinds of killings, well, the Americans do not tend to shroud anything in ambiguity. I mean, there's no doubt at all that hugely detailed videos will emerge, and then, of course, we'll have the movie, the Netflix miniseries, and the best-selling books by those involved. This is how it works nowadays. And Trump has already revealed that al-Baghdadi had been under surveillance for 2 weeks, and all kinds of decisions were made by the CIA, but the Pentagon and other crucial figures, but Trump is making sure he's projected as the key player, of course. And this is meat and drink to the Trump base, one that likes simple, clear information about the good guys defeating the bad guys. President Trump used his usual comic book vocabulary, just the kind that ISIS itself uses to announce its horrendous crimes around the world. But this is all part of the propaganda being used to try and defeat ISIS, which is rightly as reviled as Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda, which was responsible for 9/11.
Where does this leave IS? Is this a situation of they're done, or is it remove the head and two more will take its place?
Well, the death of al-Baghdadi marks the culmination of years-long hunt to find one of the most wanted terrorists in the world. The US had even put a $25 million bounty on his head. And it also ends the hunt for the man who declared the so-called Islamic State caliphate in Iraq and Syria. But losing a figurehead like this will be devastating to the organization, but it doesn't mean they will just give up. Organizations like this thrive on martyrdom, and there are already signs that ISIS forces are reviving in parts of Syria. They are emboldened by Trump's decision to pull his troops out, and sadly, the legacy of a war that never seems to stop has radicalized a lot of people, not just in Syria, but in other parts of the world.
Just briefly as well, Nabila, we heard from what President Macron was saying, what the UK has been saying. What has the international response been like to the death of Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi?
Well, Trump said some foreign nations, including Russia and Turkey, were notified ahead of time that the US was launching an operation, but were not told the details of the mission itself or who the target was. And he'll, of course, be playing for pats on the back now. And I must say he has already got plenty, not least of all from other world leaders, as you mentioned. Beyond the terrorists themselves, there are very few people anyway who will suggest that a successful operation against ISIS is a bad thing. Okay. It has to be said that most of ISIS and al-Baghdadi's victims globally are in fact Muslims. However, not everyone will be offering praise. And for example, Iran's information minister tweeted, not a big deal, you just killed your creature. Iran and other critics have often accused the United States and the West of being responsible for the creation of ISIS in the first place, following the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Journalist, Middle East commentator there, Nabila Ramdani.